Hi, my name is Rosrina. So for assignment 3, our group is looking into how English is used as a lingua franca among postgraduate students at Universiti Malaya, focusing on those from different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. So here are our group members. I'll be presenting the introduction, Maisha will be covering the literature review, and Xiaofeng will explain the methodology part of our study. Before I begin, I would like to share a little background story on how we came up with this topic. When we started brainstorming as a group, we realized that we all come from different countries and language backgrounds. I'm from Malaysia, Xiaofeng is from China, and Maisha is from Bangladesh. Despite this, we use English to communicate, and we noticed that we sometimes speak differently, whether in vocabulary, pronunciation, or even how we explain things. And yet, we still manage to understand each other and work together effectively. So that made us curious. How do students like us manage to communicate successfully despite these differences? How do we feel about our own English when we are speaking to others from different backgrounds? So we decided to explore this topic not just from a theoretical point of view but also from something that we personally relate to. That's how we came up with this topic. Now, let me go back into the context of our study. At Universiti Malaya, English is widely used among both local and international postgraduate students, especially in academic settings. Whether it's for group discussions, academic tasks, or informal conversations, English acts as a common language to help students communicate across different mother tongues. However, not all students use English in the same way. Because of differences in their language backgrounds, accents, and learning experiences, students may employ different communication strategies to make sure their message is understood. These strategies might include things like simplifying sentences, repeating ideas, using body language, or even switching languages during conversation. Besides how they speak, it is also important to look at how students feel about their own English and their friends' English. Do they see it as clear and acceptable, or do they feel like their English isn't good enough because it doesn't sound like a native speaker? These beliefs can affect how confident they are when speaking in class or during group work. Our study uses two main ideas or theoretical frameworks to explore this: English as a lingua franca or ELF and the global English's perspective. These frameworks suggest that English is no longer owned by native speakers. Instead, people all over the world use English in their own ways, and that is okay. Because what really matters is being understood, not sounding perfect. In these views, all English varieties are considered valid, whether it's Malaysian English, Chinese English, or Bangladeshi English. What's more important is how speakers adapt their English to suit their listeners. This includes changing how they speak to avoid misunderstandings and to connect better with others. Even though these ideas are widely accepted in theory, we found that there's not enough research on how students actually use English in real university life, especially in a multilingual country like Malaysia. That's why we chose to focus on postgraduate students to see how they use English, what strategies they rely on, and how they feel about their own way of speaking. So, to guide our study, we have two research objectives. First, we aim to identify the communication strategies that students use to make sure they understand and are understood when speaking English with peers from other language backgrounds. Second, we want to explore their perceptions of their own English and their peers' English, whether they think it's clear, acceptable, or effective in real conversations. These objectives are based on two main questions, which are: first, what strategies such as simplification, repetition, paraphrasing, and code switching are used to ensure mutual understanding in ELF communication among postgraduate students at Second, how do students perceive their own English and that of their peers in terms of communicative effectiveness and legitimacy? And that's the end of the introduction. My groupmate will now continue with the literature review.
Hi everyone, in this part I'm going to talk about literature review of our study, which is basically about English as a lingua franca or ELF. ELF has become increasingly important in higher education, especially among students who are who are in a multilingual environment, they are basically using English as their communication tools across diverse linguistic backgrounds. So according to Jenkins and Galloway and Rose, ELF emphasizes flexible and adaptive communication. The focus is more on being understood rather than speaking like a native. So in the ELF and global Englishes perspective, ELF is closely related with global Englishes, which recognizes all types of English as legitimate. Rose and Galloway argues that English should not be judged by native speaker standards, but rather seen as adaptable to different cultural and regional contexts. This perspective supports students using their own English confidently in the real life situation. So, communicative strategies in ELF. Studies show that ELF speakers often use strategies like simplification, clarification, paraphrasing, repetition, and code switching. One of the studies described ELF as a translanguaging practice where students use gestures, their first language, emojis, and translation tools to communicate. So it can be said that English is not only ELF is not just about the language, but it's also about the creativity. Okay, for the language ideology and perceptions of legitimacy, students' beliefs about English can affect how they judge their own and others' language use. Researchers have also found that English majors often aim for native like English, but on the other hand, non-English majors focus on being understood rather than speaking like a native. So Sang has also added that some students prefer English only spaces to avoid being excluded when local language dominate, showing the tension between ELF ideas and real life pressure. So the pedagogical challenges and institutional realities. Despite growing supports for ELF, many university still focusing on monolingual English policies. So researchers pointed out that this often ignores students' multilingual reality and lowers their confidence. So to address this problem, Rose and Galloway has invented global Englishes language, which includes diverse Englishes and student-centered materials. Other researchers have also highlighted the need for ELF-aware teachers who supports variation and flexibility in the classroom. For our identified gap, while many studies explored the wide range of ELF in places like Hong Kong, China, Europe, but few studies have focused particularly on the Malaysian universities. So there's very limited research on how local and international postgraduate students here actually use English in their informal and cross-cultural group discussions. So our study aims to fill that gap by examining the communication strategies and language perception of postgraduate students at University Malaya. Thank you.
Now here we comes to methodology part. This study uses qualitative design to explore how students communicate and how they view English as a lingua franca in academic settings. The qualitative approach allows for a deep understanding of students' language use and attitudes. Jenkins' English as a lingua franca framework will guide this study. The participants will be 15 postgraduate students at University Malaya, representing different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. Students will be selected based on language proficiency and cultural background. The study will use two methods, group discussion recordings and semi-structured interviews. This will help us to capture both real-time communication and students' views on their language use. For group discussion recordings, groups of 3 students will discuss for 10 to 15 minutes. Each group will include students from different language backgrounds to promote English as a lingua franca use. Topics will cover academic life, assignments, and students' experiences, encouraging natural conversation. After the group discussions, each participant will have a 15 to 20-minute interview in English. The interview will focus on their views of their own English, their peers' English, and the effectiveness, the legitimacy of English communication. Some simple questions are as below. How do you feel using English with peers from different countries? Have you struggled to understand a peer's English? Is there a correct way to speak English? How do you feel about your English accent? Have you felt misunderstood or judged because of English accent? What do you do if you don't understand English in your communication? As group discussions will be analyzed by discourse analysis based on Jenkins' ELF framework. We will identify strategies such as simplification, repetition, code switching, clarification requests, repair strategies, nonverbal cues, and so on. The interview data will be analyzed using the semantic analysis. The analysis will look for patterns related to students' perceptions of their own and their peers' English, steps including reading data, creating initial codes, finding sims, review, and naming sims, and then write the reports. Now let's move on to anticipated results. Students are likely to use simplification and repetition often to ensure clarity. Code switching will be common among students who share the same first language. Nonverbal cues and the accommodation are expected to help enhance mutual understanding in diverse groups. The themes may include confidence, language legitimacy, views on native speakers' norms, and ownership of English. Students may show high self-awareness of their English limitations, but prioritize being understood over correctness. Some may value native speakers' norms, while others may accept English as a legitimate global communication tool. For implications, our study can offer educators methods to enhance communication and understanding in a diverse student groups. The findings can also help universities create more inclusive environment for international students and foster better cross-cultural interactions. And here is our reference list. Thanks for listening.